And we are live.
Welcome back, beautiful and amazing human beings. This is Rudowski of WeAreChange.org, of course, joined by Jason Bermas, once again, halfway across the world. That's usually how we just do these things. And, of course, we are going to be live for an hour. There's so much news breaking right now. I mean, it's impossible to keep up with right now. But in this video, of course, we're going to give you the latest news on Nicaragua, Kanye West, Jason Bermas' his favorite topic, the DNC suing WikiLeaks, Donald Trump, North Korea, and, of course, a lot more. So we're going to be here giving you that for the next hour, so make sure you share this broadcast with your friends and family members. We're going to be live on Periscope through our Twitter account, WeAreChange NYC. But, of course, we're going to be answering Super Chats and taking all the comments from YouTube on our live YouTube channel. Predominantly in answering and communicating with you for the next hour on that platform. So again, as well as what we did the last 2 weeks, we're going to be doing another $500 Dash giveaway, which of course we're going to be doing all the way at the end of this broadcast. But a lot of things are breaking right now with North Korea, Nicaragua especially. But today also is a very significant day, Jason, and people need to remember that today is also the 14th year anniversary that Pat Tillman was actually killed, and his death, of course, was covered up to sell us more war and propaganda in Afghanistan. Jason, how are you, and do you have any words for Pat Tillman and the anniversary that we're celebrating today?
Well, I am actually very well, Luke, but yeah, we do need to talk about Pat Tillman because it's 14 years ago now. A lot of people are not familiar with this story, and unfortunately, Mr. Tillman bought into the war propaganda, left a very lucrative career in football. I mean, this was a top-tier guy. You know, this wasn't just some bum or, you know, he was an all-pro. This guy, you know, said, hey, I want to fight for my country. And he went over there, and it was fratricide. In other words, he was killed by his own unit. And it was covered up for years and years and years. And, you know, Tillman went over there and started to see what was going on. And he was ready to go public. So there's been some debate, obviously, in the quote-unquote conspiracy community, whether or not this was actually an accidental death or he was taken out for his outspoken beliefs, Luke. But the bottom line is we had a man who bought into propaganda, went overseas, saw what was going on, had a change of heart, and he didn't make it back.
And was going to speak out against it, and also the idiocracy were going over to Iraq. His family was even speaking out about this, and of course there's a lot of information that, and people should remember Pat Tillman, and sadly not many people do. That's why I wanted to kind of start this broadcast, especially with today being the anniversary of his ultimate kind of demise and death that happened, and larger cover-up that happened to push more war and propaganda on the American people. The only way these things are going to be remembered is if we keep talking about it, and that's why I wanted to start off this broadcast. Even though Kanye West, Jason, is trending all over the internet, and people are going crazy over this latest Kanye news, which I know you're very excited about, right?
Oh, I'm thrilled, my friend.
Well, I wanted to bring this up because obviously it's a hot topic of discussion right now. We had Kanye West tweet out saying that he loves the way that kind of a conservative activist was thinking on his Twitter account. And of course, there was a lot of outrage. A lot of people are freaking out that Kanye West talked favorable in regards to a conservative activist. Now he's also tweeting, quote, "Hi, thought police, you've effed with the wrong thinker." He's going all on a whole tirade right now, talking about suppression of free speech, the psychological zombie effect. And this is not the first time he did this. I mean, as we could show in the next article, Kanye West actually even came out and said Facebook and Google were lying to you. He even publicly singled out Mark Zuckerberg, Hillary Clinton, and Barack Obama on another tirade before, of course, he was inundated into a mental hospital. But some of the comments he said before, because obviously this is a big topic of discussion, people are like, oh man, he's woke, he's waking up. Well, we kind of have a different context of it, of course. I know definitely you do, Jason, as well. But he said this before, quote, "Hillary Clinton, it's a new world. Feelings matter because guess what? Everybody in middle America felt a way and they showed you how they felt. Feelings matter, bro. It's a new world. It's a new world, Barack. It's a new world. Jay-Z, hey, don't send killers at my head, bro. This ain't the Malcolm X movie. So again, he's definitely known for his tirades. He also went on during his last tirade talking about your ass is going to be Hillary Clinton. You might not like it, but they got to hear it. I ain't here to massage you with a fake truth, telling you that Hillary Clinton's going to win over and over and over, and then you wake up and you still can't believe it. You know why? Because you was lied to by Google. You was lied to by Mark Zuckerberg. So those are other eloquent rants going off by Kanye West previously before. And of course, I wanted to bring this up to you, Jason. Many people are like, oh man, he's finally waking up. He's finally being red-pilled. And I wanted to ask you, is this going to be another Charlie Sheen situation where people are going to be like, okay, calm down there, hush, hush? Or is this going to be a more thoughtful, open-ended dialogue that actually has people critically thinking? What do you think, Jason?
Well, I think that it's already beyond a Charlie Sheen situation, and that situation is extremely disturbing. Let's get down to the nitty-gritty, okay? This guy, he's very talented. I'm not going to take that away from him. I actually watched the entire tirade he went on when it came out, because there was talk of, again, a lot of those actual fake news organizations were trying to say that he talked about Pedogate or what's known as Pizzagate during this thing, and it was being edited. There was a lot of disinfo. He was ready to come, because every time somebody has a breakdown or they die, it's because they were about to come out against the Illuminati. They're coming out against the Illuminati.
I remember seeing those clickbait articles from all these supposed alternative media sites saying he was put in the mental hospital because he was about to drop the bomb on Pizzagate. This is 100% confirmed. No, not really. It's a lot of speculation. It's a lot of crap out there, just kind of like we're seeing right now with him saying that he likes the way someone thinks that's conservative.
Yeah, and that's great. Listen, the guy's allowed to have his own opinion, Luke. I mean, obviously, that's a positive thing. So, here's the problem. He surrounded himself with insanity, with insane people, with people that don't have a grasp on what I like to call reality. Now, first of all, he's in show business. He's been highly successful. He married a woman who got famous because her father was OJ's lawyer. They had a lot of money, and she put out a sex tape with another hip-hop artist. And then apparently America fell in love with her bottom dollar. I don't get it. I think I've seen better bottom dollars. I'm not saying she's not an attractive woman, but the obsession is real. But
it's all photoshopped too and fake. There's actually real paparazzi. If you look up real and fake Kim Kardashian, she actually pays paparazzi to touch her up and make her look more beautiful than she is. But the actual images of how she looks like without the paid off paparazzi that shot photos of her in Mexico are absolutely just insane. I don't know if you ever saw that, Jason, or if you Google that, real and fake Kim Kardashian without the Photoshop. But it's definitely not a good bottom dollar.
Again, if you think that I waste my time with
it's
anything
not worth
like
investing in. It's not worth investing in.
It's not something I care about. And, I like a little celebritard culture every now and then. I'm looking forward to the Westworld premiere tonight. Hey, great. But getting back to Kanye, and he's put himself in a really bad situation, okay? You look what happened to Jenner, okay? Jenner was an Olympic athlete that married into this family of insanity that has a reality show. I've never watched the reality show, but it seems like every single guy that is involved with this family is a terrible effing person, Luke. I'm not just
talking. Look what happened to Lamar Odom.
Listen, let's not forget. I mean, forget about Lamar Odom ODing, and then he's just back and forth in strip clubs. This
at a brothel. Baby daddy. He like OD'd at a brothel.
At a brothel. Okay.
Yeah.
Again, these guys are they're supposed to be happy, Luke. They have everything. They have the celebrity. They have the money. They have the beautiful women, and it's still not enough because they're sickos, dude. And I'm not even going to talk about Caitlyn Jenner's sexuality or whatever you want to say. She ran somebody over and killed them, and nothing happened. Okay, that's the kind of entitlement that breeds sociopaths, dude. So, hey, I'm just telling you right now, unless he decides to get a divorce, move to Minnesota or Ohio or somewhere in the Colorado mountains like Dave Chappelle did and live a normal life and get away, no, he's doomed. He is effing doomed. Go ahead.
Yeah, you made a very good point about the whole fame aspect, kind of wanting more fame, wanting more power, and the kind of psychological aspects of that, because it truly is a very important aspect to point out here. And of course, a lot of people want to give up their power and they want him to be the spokesperson, but ultimately you're leading yourself down a very bad pathway. And I definitely agree with you on that. He's entitled to his opinion, but again, it's only a celebrity. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't really affect us. We should still have the dialogue. We should still have open communication. But again, let's stop giving away our power to these celebrities and to these other people who really shouldn't matter in our lives. Right now, there's other important news that I want to get into right after this. But we, of course, have a super chat right now that I also wanted to address by Mike Mendoza. And he asked, me and you, Jason, could you please produce a documentary on the use of MK Ultra and other psychological operations that manipulate the opinions of the masses? Now, Jason, you've done a really great documentary about the events that happened down in Florida. That was very highly well produced. Took you a long time to do. Do you think we should do more documentaries? And is this a topic? I mean, you're more of the documentary guy. I'm more of the just run around, shoot, run and gun kind of video person. But what's your opinion on that?
I'd love to. In fact, I actually tried to do that documentary. It was something that I was on when I was on my way out of InfoWars. It's called Under Control with a K. It was going to be about not only mind control, MK Ultra, artichoke, but also neurolinguistics programming and kind of the Bernaysian culture of mind control that we're all under. So that's actually something that's still kind of close to my heart. I signed a small movie deal with a production company called Lemon Films out of 2010. It just never came to fruition. Guys, documentary films are tough. I pumped that one out in about 3 weeks, Luke. Parkland. It's only about 30 minutes. I feel like I need to do an update because I want it to look a little slicker, and you know how I like my production value. They're not easy to do, and we are growing. It's tough enough to keep up with the Facebook, the Twitter. The kids love the Facebook and the Twitter. It's what's keeping this thing afloat right now because the YouTube, they're not showing the love. I'm glad you're watching the YouTube right now, guys, but we've offset that so much, and just running that stuff while Luke is running around to Serbia and Somalia. And where are you at right now, my friend?
Frankfurt, Germany.
From
Germany. Romania.
Yeah, Romania.
From Romania.
So again, it's tough out there, and we want to do more documentaries, but that's why we need your support. And I hope we can in the future, Luke. But you know how that is.
I like that idea, and I never knew you were working on something like that. But let's definitely talk about more about that privately, and I think it could be a great project, especially if we get approved by Dash once again. Our proposal with Dash, the cryptocurrency that is kind of sponsoring us for this month, only lasted for 30 days. We're right in the middle point of that. That's why we're still giving out $500 during this broadcast. But Dash is just a cryptocurrency, and their kind of master noders vote and decide on projects that they want to fund. We put in a proposal about a month ago. It got approved 2 weeks in. And ultimately, Dash is just a cryptocurrency where people could make payments, private payments, online or in stores. And it's kind of a secure open source platform that is hosted by the people who are using it. And that's why we're trying to incentivize people opening up their wallets, getting free Dash through our broadcasts. We're putting another proposal in, and if I think that proposal goes through, we're going to move up from not only $500 giveaways, but also $1,000 giveaways on this show. Let's also make that documentary about MK Ultra. I really like that idea. Let's get some, more people on the ground here, because people don't understand this. It's just me and Jason, and we have to deal with a whole bunch of adversities, especially with YouTube, which I'm going to try. I have a long flight from Frankfurt to New York tomorrow, but in the chaos and the mix of all that, I'm still going to try to do a YouTube video just updating people on the insane situation that just happened to me and a third party, all on behest of YouTube and their kind of extra legal actions that they've taken against us recently. That, again, I'm going to get into all those details in just a full-length video on this YouTube channel. But it's just astonishing seeing our viewership go down while our organic reach has been going up dramatically on this YouTube channel. And it's really a pain in the butt because I'm doing the best work of my life. I finally have a drone. I'm doing time lapses. I'm going to Somalia. I'm going to Zimbabwe. I'm traveling all over the world, frequent flyer mile, travel hacking. It doesn't cost anyone anything. But I'm working at such a high level, such an intense level, and viewership is lower than ever. And it just absolutely makes no sense to see what YouTube's doing and how they're hurting so many creators out there, especially in independent media. But Dash has been able to offset that, and we're working on other innovations. We're going to do a contest as well. We still haven't officially announced it, but we're going to see, and hopefully we get approved by Dash. Once again, our proposal is in there, and if we do get approved by Dash, obviously expect a lot more from us. We're not going away anytime soon. But anyway, moving forward, thank you, Mike, for that super chat and that question. Let's get to the actual news. Instead of Kanye West, I'm happy we talked about Pat Tillman first, because I do think this Kanye West thing is a distraction. But the most important news is what is recently happening in Nicaragua and the huge unrest happening in that country. I mean, there's looting, there's a government building on fire. 25 people have been pronounced dead, and even even a journalist died while he was broadcasting live the protests that were happening in that country because, again, the Nicaraguan president wanted welfare changes and social security changes adapted to Nicaragua and the population there, where people had to put in more money towards Social Security and they would get less resources out of it. There's been massive rioting, massive protest, massive suppression of those protests by the Nicaraguan government. And now, just within just a few moments right before we went live, we have breaking news that the Nicaraguan welfare changes that sparked all these protests have actually been canceled. So it looks like there finally will be some calm and some peace. But again, it still leaves a lot of the people in the world community saying, why is the U.S. turning a blind eye when the Nicaraguan government is killing 25 of their own citizens and even shot and killed a journalist who was live on Facebook? There's also other events in Israel that the United States is ignoring. And of course, this is becoming a kind of bigger issue. And as we know, Trump and the current president of Nicaragua kind of have a back and forth, very complicated relationship, especially with Donald Trump trying to lobby them not to sign up with the Paris climate change agreement. Nicaragua turned their back on Trump. There were supposed to be some insider deals, but obviously, as we know, the United States has played a very heavy hand within the last few decades within South American politics, of course, being more in favor of more hard-handed governments. So it's very hard to, understand the relationship between Trump and the current Nicaraguan president. But it definitely looks like the United States is just totally turning a blind eye when they're supposed to be the police of the world.
Well, they're the police of the world when there's resources to be had and dictators to be overthrown for U.S. and Western banking friendlies, my friend. People who love things like the petrodollar and the IMF and the World Bank. Well, then, freedom for all via, drones, missiles, ground troops in Africa that nobody seems to know about because you're the only one reporting on them, Luke.
Yeah.
So again,
U.S. raids, U.S. drone strikes happening right now in Somalia, but yet no one talks about it. It doesn't exist.
It doesn't seem to exist. If you asked 100 people out there on the streets, go to one of those protests, that's so important against Trump as the Democrats, and we'll get into it later, are suing him now into eternity over winning the election. There couldn't be more insanity. So go to one of those protests and ask them what AFRICOM is. And I guarantee you're going to get 99 blank stares. Is that the new hip-hop band my kids are listening to?
That's most likely what's going to happen verbatim, Jason. Verbatim.
I like their song, Luke. I like their song. They're good. AFRICOM. No, I'm into them. I'm hip. I'm with it.
I'm going to make a video just about that in Times Square, just going up to people and talking about all these kind of military terms and making them music bands and seeing how people really like them. I think that's a great idea. You just gave me the idea. I'm writing that down right now. Music bands, AFRICOM, and we'll probably Predator drone strike. What do you think about, or we'll just think of new ideas.
Well, what was the CIA program? Sycamore, Kimber Sycamore. That's what you should really do. Hey, have you heard of Kimber Sycamore? Huh? They got the hits. I think that would be perfect.
I think that would be pretty good.
And you know what? We're going to get into Kimber Sycamore later. Actually, Luke, one of our probably our biggest video to date right now that we've put up there is that MSNBC video where he talks about Kimber Sycamore live on Morning Joe, and it is the CIA program in which Barack Obama decided to put essentially the CIA on the ground, Luke, and say, hey, we're going into Syria whether you like it or not. And I guarantee someone's going to think that's a great musical act.
Without a doubt. I definitely got to do more man on the street videos and interviews. Definitely expect more of those. But again, I think there's a huge layer of hypocrisy, especially when we go to the United States statements and their kind of involvement in world conflicts. But again, we have to understand these conflicts are extremely complicated and not as clear-cut, especially in Nicaragua, especially in Israel, especially in Saudi Arabia. But they do point out a very important aspect of the hypocrisy, and that's why I wanted to bring up this next website, because recently Saudi Arabia just killed 20 civilians in Yemen, and this just happened yesterday. But of course, no mainstream media outlet in the United States is talking about regime change. No mainstream media organization is talking about the humanitarian crisis happening in Yemen right now, which is the worst crisis in the world right now. I mean, it is absolutely atrocious what's happening inside of Syria. Inside of Yemen, and also Syria, of course, as well. But when we're talking about the level of people that are impacted, the level of innocent children that are actually hurt, the Yemen conflict takes it by far, and for it to be ignored is just an outright atrocity. And it needs to be called out, and it needs to be singled out. But again, there's just a lot of hypocrisy, a lot of propaganda. Whenever you hear the mainstream media and the U.S. government saying that they care for people, always make sure you ask a lot of questions, because that's not usually the case. There's usually, of course, a bigger agenda. There's usually more things going on that we don't know about. And I think we're also getting answers to finally why the U.S. government decided to act so quickly with the supposed latest chemical attack that happened in Syria in Douma. As we're getting new videos and new information that this attack was potentially faked, according to many people online. There's even an actual video of one of the kids who was in the original video, which was obviously produced by the White Helmets in Douma, that we have right now, saying that this was all staged. This is the boy that was in the video, the chemical weapons attack video that supposedly happened on Douma, saying, yeah, they just grabbed me off the street, started pouring cold water on me until my father had to come in and take me away from them. So that is just astonishing video that, of course, we're not seeing on CNN over here. No, we're never going to get that side of the story or those sources or that kind of understanding of it. And if that wasn't enough, there's also a very famous war reporter, Robert Frisk, who works for The Independent, who went down there and he said people there were gassed. And he came out as a mainstream Western journalist, and he's actually even reporting on this. So that is also groundbreaking. Germany's also largest public TV news broadcaster came out and said Syrian chemical weapons attack, most likely staged. So, of course, we have a lot of people coming out contradicting the official story of what happened during this chemical attack that, of course, pushed Donald Trump to bomb Syrian military forces, which, of course, ultimately just bombed empty sites, caused no casualties, and was a huge PR move, and ultimately kind of bolstering of the U.S. military might all around the world, saying that the United States won't back down and they will go after people who violate people's humanitarian rights, which is, again, just a convoluted, complicated-ass situation that people really need to understand, especially with the other side of the story that we're finally seeing right now with all these people coming out and saying there probably even wasn't a chemical weapons attack. What do you think about those people coming out and saying that, Jason?
Well, I think it's great news because James Mattis believes there was a chemical attack, Luke. I mean, he sat there before Congress and he said, I believe there was a chemical attack. And Luke, we're going to play this video. We've got the full video over at the Facebook page. Please go check it out. But this is an independent news reporter. Somehow he can get into Syria, Luke. But our chemical weapons inspectors, they can't get in. They can't find it. We could get a CNN reporter who can sniff a backpack and be 100% certain there were chemical attacks. But as you just showed, and we showed it here, we were showing snippets of that video, that tweet, right? That kid's fine. He did not get chemically attacked a few weeks ago. You know where that happened? In a little place called White Helmet Imagination Land. And now we're going to, we should have played the Roger Waters speech. It was absolutely fantastic. Also on the WeAreChange Facebook. But we're going to go to this video right now. We're going to play it a little bit. It is Pearson Sharp. But here's somebody who did what I like to call journalism. He went to the site. He went to the hospital. He talked to the doctors. He talked to the citizens. And let's see what he has to say. We'll stop it along the way. Take it away,
All right,
Pearson.
so we're here inside the hospital that was controlled by the terrorists, Jaish al-Islam, on the day that the alleged chemical attack was supposed to have happened. We've talked to 2 doctors, a general surgeon.
He's talked to 2 doctors and a general surgeon. What do you think? What are dollars to donuts? What do you think he's going to say? Chemical attack or no chemical attack?
I mean, it just makes absolutely just no sense to the official narrative and the official story that we're hearing. I mean, there obviously was a reason. There's a lot of smoke and mirrors through this entire kind of facade that we're seeing portrayed on the mainstream media. And I think that's why it's important to have independent media as well.
Thank God. Here he goes. Wait, let's find out.
Several of the nursing staff, a number of the patients who were in the hospital that day, not one person saw any sign of a chemical attack. The story that they're giving us is that on that day, they were in there, it was a normal day, and suddenly a bunch of people rushed into the room shouting, chemical attack, and the doctors didn't know who they were, they didn't know where they were from, and the strangers came in and started spraying water, and so the other people who were in the room started spraying water as well. After that, they started filming it, and then they left. There's absolutely no sign of any chemical attack that anyone has found so far.
Huh. Well, I mean, they went in, screamed chemical attack, did some filming, and Luke, there we go. That's all we needed to know, my friend. It's on.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I said if ISIS really wants to win and have their caliphate inside of Syria, all they have to do is just stage more chemical weapons attack, or even just commit them themselves, which they did before on record inside of the Syrian battlefield, of course, going up against the Syrian government, the Iranians, and of course the Russians that are fighting them there on the ground right now. Obviously, the United States is not leaving Syria. Supposedly, the French convinced Donald Trump, which he's denying, that he's going to keep troops there until the, quote, mission is done. And people have to understand here, the mission here it's not just for humanitarian purposes. The mission here is, of course, resources, petrodollar alliances with Israel and Saudi Arabia that have a lot more to do with a very complicated geopolitical situation that, of course, it only got more complicated. And I was kind of surprised, but not really surprised with this latest news article that we got from Newsweek, where we had the Russian Foreign Minister, Sergei Lavrov, coming out and saying that it was Moscow that dictated where the United States, Britain, and France were allowed to attack during that Syrian chemical weapons attack that Donald Trump committed on the Syrian government. Now, obviously, this shows a lot of backdoor dealings between the United States and Russia. We're seeing a lot of conflicted statements. We're seeing the United States and Pentagon saying that all the missiles were shot and they reached their target. The Syrians and Russians are coming out with video showing that a majority of the missiles were actually shot down. But with there being no casualties and these being mostly empty facilities, it definitely does seem like Donald Trump cut a deal with the Russians. It was like, look, I got myself in this hole. I need to figure something out. I can't back down. Let's work out a deal here. And the deal looks like was to bomb these empty facilities, which were supposedly chemical weapons facilities. But yet again, people need to understand here, if they really were chemical weapons facilities, they would spread chemical weapons to the populace inside of Syria, and therefore it would be another chemical weapons attack. That didn't happen. There were civilians walking around these supposed chemical weapons facilities like it was no big deal. But this article should be surprising to a lot of people because, on one hand, it could be the Russians just bluffing and trying to kind of get their dig at Donald Trump. But at the same time, there is a realm of reality here that this possibly did happen, like the Russians are saying, because ultimately World War III didn't break out. We saw a lot of tough talk. The Russians didn't respond. There were no casualties. They were mostly empty facilities. And it's maybe just a bigger deal for just the expansion of the military-industrial complex. What are your theories out this? Again, we're going into theoretical here based off what we're hearing from Newsweek.
Well, Luke, I think that you're actually pretty spot on. Just the fact that there wasn't any kind of a military response. We know that the facilities that they hit were obviously not chemical facilities because, like you said, if they were chemical facilities, well, what would that do? That would spread chemical agents. And it doesn't seem like there were any casualties. I think that, again, there was posturing over the missiles. We watched some of those missiles get taken out. See, that's what people don't get. This isn't some Iraqi or Afghanistan conflict where we can just bomb someone into oblivion. They have a military. They can shoot things down. And look,
and now they have a better military with an upgraded missile defense systems that Russia just gave to them right after this bombing, with Russian forces and military warships right on the coast protecting Syria, with also China waiting in the background as well. Sorry to cut you off there, Jason.
No, absolutely. So again, this is an actual conflict where there's this hot proxy war. All of a sudden, there's this what now isn't even a false flag attack. It's a made up attack. There's been now we're 3 weeks out, Luke. We've seen nothing but evidence to the contrary that this actually occurred. We've read what the French put out there, which was a garbage. It was a garbage report. We showed you the PDF file. Again, it was laughable. Okay?
Yeah.
So now...
And all their stories are conflicting. The French are conflicting with the Russians are conflicting with the U.S., and all the stories are all different.
So again, I'm not happy with what Trump did, but I'm a lot happier than seeing 100 or 200 casualties in Syria. And with this news on North Korea, again, we're fair here. I think that at least I've been fair. I'm going to come after the guy when he does something wrong, but if this is real that we're now disarming North Korea and they're not going to do nuclear tests, if this was Obama, dude, they would have had him on the cover of every freaking magazine in the clouds as Jesus Christmas, like hands across the world. He's the peacemaker. Hey, they would have given him they did give him a Nobel Peace Prize. I'm sorry for nothing. Yeah. But that's my point. Yeah. Like, Trump should actually, if this happens, if they disarm it, and all of a sudden North Korea starts to become part of South Korea and becomes westernized, and they're making Samsung phones, and they don't have slave camps, why wouldn't you give the guy the goddamn Nobel Peace Prize? He would deserve it, Luke.
Yeah, well, before we get into North Korea, I still want to finish off on this thing, because there's two possibilities here. Whether the kind of military-industrial complex of the U.S. and Russia are in cahoots, which this Newsweek article kind of leads support to, or whether there really is a very fine line that the Russians and Chinese are saying, if you break, we will have a war. And then the U.S. actually backed off, because we saw Barack Obama faced with the same situation that Donald Trump was faced with when Barack Obama was going to bomb the Syrian government and Bashar al-Assad, and we saw Barack Obama back down. Donald Trump didn't back down. He looks supposedly tougher to the world, even though we're finding out all this other information, even though these strikes really didn't amount to anything and only emboldened Russian and Chinese and Iranian and BRICS kind of geopolitical economic movements against the petrodollar, which again is not going to work out in everyone's favor here. We have to understand here, I think I'm more towards the favor of that there is a very strong red line that the Russians and Chinese made here saying we'll go to war. And I think both countries do know that this will be, awful for the world and most likely end the world, especially with world powers going at each other like the way that they have been. And Syria could just be their little sandbox that they're engaged in. But obviously, I think Trump tried to get what he could. He tried to look like a tough leader, like he doesn't back down, that he goes further than Barack Obama. Maybe he was trying to even to military posture against North Korea. We saw, the stock prices and the stock value of Raytheon go up $2.5 billion in response to these attacks. But yet again, that goes along with the article that I also sent you, Jason. That goes along with the economic realities of this, which again backs up what I'm saying now. It's because there is an actual war. It's not a hot war. It's not just a proxy war, but most importantly, it's an economic war that will affect all of us, with even Iran deciding to officially switch within the last 3 days from selling, on the international market, especially with their oil, from dollars to euros. We saw Saddam Hussein make a very similar move. The fate of Saddam Hussein was, of course, marked down that he was, again, had weapons of mass destruction, had chemical weapons that Colin Powell was shaking up there at the UN stage, and it caused an invasion that cost the lives of many innocent people and started the rise of ISIS and other radical Islamic terrorist groups inside of the Middle East, predominantly because of this kind of economic move that Saddam Hussein made against the United States. So it's interesting that Iran is doing this within just the last 3 days. And it's also very interesting that one of the people who was a part of the Joint Chiefs of Staff during George W. Bush's presidency, when they were launching the war towards Iraq and building up the propaganda effort and the lies about weapons of mass destruction, he came out about 2 months ago and said the same thing that happened with Iraq is happening right now with Iran within the U.S. government, with Donald Trump pushing for a greater conflict. And that's exactly what we're going to see. And it's going to happen not just between Russia and the United States, not just between Syria and the United States, but most importantly, also Israel and Saudi Arabia, with their involvement, of course, being aligned together with their geopolitical foe, Iran. And Israel has even hinted and come out today and saying that they could hit Iranians' air force inside of Syria. So we're seeing obviously more military posturing. We've seen very aggressive actions by Israel, bombing and attacking Syrian government and Iranian military forces inside of Syria. But that could also be the spark that launches this huge proxy war. If we look at all the great world wars, they all started World War I and World War II predominantly with smaller countries going at it and having bigger alliances. Those alliances are very clear here. We have Israel, Saudi Arabia, France, the United Kingdom, and the United States all aligned together with their bigger goals, of course, going up against China, Russia, Iran, Syria, and of course Hezbollah. All of these countries are enemies to each other, and it could just be Israel going after Iran that could also spark this kind of bigger conflict, which I think is real from the information that we just heard from Newsweek. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jason, or feel free to add on top of my kind of understanding of the situation.
No, I think you're spot on. Israel, again, let's go all the way back to stocks rising. So whether or not this chemical attack is real, the bombs that hit Syria, no matter what plants whether the Russia told us we could hit these places, those are very real. And they cause an economic upturn in those kind of stock prices. In fact, it happened over the weekend. It happened on a Sunday night, I believe. And did it happen Friday night? Whatever. The stock market was closed. And I said, you watch. The stock market is going to shoot through the roof for these military-industrial complex companies. And I showed an article where the same thing had happened after this last strike a year ago on that other quote-unquote chemical attack. So stocks rise. The enemy is in our sights, and then what does Israel say? We're going to strike them with missiles again. And remember, people are already forgetting. They were the people that initially struck Syria with missiles after this chemical attack. They had even less evidence of no attack happening, and it didn't stop them from shooting off missiles. So people got to understand, this is a multi-trillion-dollar business that our government openly supports, is involved in heavily, and we don't even know what their black budget is. Can you imagine?
And they're willing, and they're willing to sacrifice real lives for, like we've seen them do within the last few years, and have real consequences with mass human suffering. Sorry, Jason. Black budgets.
Yeah, no, exactly. The black budget alone, Luke, we could be building roads. Forget about taxes. We wouldn't have home taxes. We are literally funding our own demise and the demise of millions of other people around the world that we have never met in person, that we have no understanding of their lives, Luke. And you want to talk about voting with our dollars? Every day, every time you buy something and you pay sales tax, guess what? You're voting with your dollar. You're voting for big bombs as big business, whether you like it or not. And that's something I didn't sign up for, Luke, yet it's something that we can't seem to escape.
And that's what Donald Trump also announced recently, that he's going to be expanding the sales of to the entire world. Arms, the military-industrial complex. Which of course is one of the biggest and one of the most important lobbyists in the U.S. government, and sadly dictates a lot of the crappy mainstream media and finances and funds, and cooperates and works with elusively with these bungholes that I have on television right now that I'm watching. I usually watch this kind of North Korean-esque propaganda, Pravda crap, just to see the kind of crap that they're trying to throw on all of us. People, I'm seeing in the comment section, be like, "What? Why is Luke watching CNN?" You gotta understand the enemy in order to defeat them, and that's exactly what I'm doing. Dealing with this severe migraine-inducing, intolerant, uneducating crap. So I could better understand what they're pushing on the average person, which is a lot of hooey. We got another super chat, Jason, by Michael Holiday, and he's asking. I think this is a question for you. Solar minimum lines up with Agenda 2030, as Kissinger foreshadowed. They will use food to control the people. Please research solar minimum. Have you ever heard of solar minimum?
No, but I would assume he's referring to the minimum amount of power that must be used by solar in, I would assume, again, urbanized areas. If it has anything to do with Agenda 21 and Kissinger and kind of like this crazy Hunger Games scenario. Listen, I like my country, as in I like the United States, and I like being in the country. I'm not in New York City. I'm not a city boy like you, Luke. I'm not a big travel star. I like, my peaceful community. I like saying hi to people at the coffee shop that know me. I like knowing my niece's teachers, things like that, of that nature. That's how you build community. And if it ever does come to this nightmare scenario where they are literally cutting off our resources, putting us into urbanized areas, and enacting things like Agenda 21, where we're on rail cars and having to sacrifice our firstborn to some Hunger Games type reality show, we are screwed, man. We are completely screwed. But I think, again, it's something that we could absolutely stop. Listen, we're making progress. More and more people are turning away from the mainstream media, Luke. We've seen it time and time again. And it's very encouraging. Things like the Jimmy Dore Show are being attacked by CNN because they have huge audiences. Even though, again, our YouTube numbers are down, our organic numbers everywhere else are up because people want the truth, Luke.
I got another comment here. I'm looking at the comment section saying, very wrong about the solar minimum, guys. It's about the sun's output itself. It is act. So I guess that's what people are talking about. But yeah, again, we're living on a small, tiny blue dot in a very unpredictable kind of universe where even like solar flares could happen any moment in any instant. I think there's a lot of chaos to this world, and a lot of people, especially government institutions, try to make you think that they're in control some way, and they do that out of order out of chaos. That's kind of their main kind of philosophy and doctrine. And I think that's one thing that Donald Trump has kind of been very persuasive on, is creating out of a lot of chaos, and then trying to make people assume like he's in control. But again, the stories are all falling apart. If you're paying attention, if you're on the internet, you're finally finding out through independent media outlets like this, the true story of what happened in Syria, the true story of what happens between all these major events, the true stories of what each side is saying, and you're able to make up your own mind. If you're watching this horrible poo-poo crap, you have no idea to this whole other kind of reality that people are engaging in and learning from and hearing from both sides, and actually learning about what's really happening in this world. Which brings us to this next story that, again, has been very convoluted this entire week, but just as of a few minutes ago, totally just changed. And of course, I'm talking about Donald Trump's announcement that North Korea will denuclearize. So obviously, earlier this week, Donald Trump came out and said, without the United States even putting anything on the table, without the United States giving anything up, the North Koreans have agreed to denuclearize. And now the North Koreans are like, no. I don't know how you say no in Korean, but no. We're like, if Donald Trump succeeds at this, he's going to be extremely popular. This is going to definitely help win his re-election, that he finally got North Korea to denuclearize. But of course, a lot of people were throwing doubt, and rightfully so, as we're finding out right now, as the North Koreans are denying it. Now, the North Koreans did say that they are suspending their nuclear tests ahead of this kind of anticipated talk that will happen between Kim Jong Un and U.S. President Donald Trump. But they're definitely not denuclearizing. And the North Korea situation is also a very fascinating one, because when you look at the other side of the story, it is something that definitely puts things in perspective, because one thing that the North Koreans have been asking and said that they would comply with the United States is for the U.S. military to stop doing military drills with them practicing bombing and destroying their country. This has been what North Korea has been asking for, and even put up their nuclear weapons program on the line in exchange for. So for years now, Barack Obama was offered this 2 times. Donald Trump was offered this a number of times. This deal which China and even Russia said that they would back and support, that North Korea would denuclearize if the United States moved away their military and wasn't practicing these military drills. Obviously, this would benefit China and Russia greatly, because the United States military wouldn't be right at their doorsteps, right at their border. But it's interesting that the United States, unbeknownst in this entire debate, turned down that deal many of times. Now, obviously, they still see North Korea as a very big threat. From the kind of scuttlebutt information I'm getting, North Korea already does have nuclear weapons, and now they're going around kind of negotiating and meeting with other countries, seeing what best deal they could work out. As we know, Kim Jong Un was just a few days ago inside of China, meeting with the Chinese president. So obviously, North Korea is definitely the kind of buffer zone that we're seeing here to the bigger economic proxy war conflict that is happening between Russia, China, and the United States. So it'll be very interesting to see if these talks actually develop anything. You kind of see Donald Trump taking rules out of his own book. What was the Donald Trump, the famous book that he wrote? The Art of the Deal.
Art of the Deal, Luke. And by the way, your camera is frozen, just to let you know.
Oh, hold on. I'm going to reset that. And as I keep finishing off this latest topic, what the hell happened here? All right, hold on. I need to restart this program. Oh, Lordy. What was I saying?
You were talking about the Art of the Deal and Trump's book, and basically talking about making all these deals with North Korea. And again, Luke, if he's able to disarm these people or get them, again, to westernize, to be absorbed by South Korea, to become an ally of the United States without us having to hurt his civilian population, well, I think that's a pretty positive thing. And especially with guys like Bolton, who have been for military action in these type of nations, Luke. I think that, we've really got ourselves into a better situation. And again, it's so hard for, first of all, it's so hard for people that are pro-Trump to ever criticize him, but it's so hard for anybody on the quote-unquote left to give him credit where credit is due.
Well, you do see a lot of negotiating, you do see a lot of posturing, but with people like John Bolton in there, they have absolutely no interest in peace, and they are definitely jeopardizing these talks. And putting John Bolton in there was the dumbest move that Donald Trump could commit. My camera should be better now. I just checked Skype. Is it working?
Yeah, you're all good.
John Bolton just went to Kim Jong Un, and he said that, again, he's doing the whole tough talk thing, and he told Kim Jong Un, give up your nukes like Qaddafi did. Now, this is a very convoluted story, but Muammar Qaddafi, the leader of Libya, the previous leader of Libya that was ousted by the United States and NATO and bombed to smithereens with and attacked by rebel groups that were supported by the United States and tortured in the streets with Hillary Clinton laughing when he was getting a knife stabbed into all of his orifices, like the sick human being that she is. Qaddafi never had nuclear weapons. He did have chemical weapons that he allegedly got rid of and used it as a big PR move geopolitically for the United States to look good and posture with in order to be favorable with the United States and cut a deal with them that really didn't amount to anything. Obviously, Qaddafi was then still ousted and killed and tortured in the streets. But one of the things that Kim Jong Un said is, before Bolton made this statement, before Bolton made the statements, Kim Jong Un said, I will never give up my nuclear weapons, because if we look at what happened throughout history, especially with people like Qaddafi giving up his supposed chemical weapons, as soon as he did, he was just getting led down the street, getting stabbed by rebels supported by the freaking enemy. So this is definitely not the right approach, especially by John Bolton. Extremely counterproductive. Definitely won't lead to any peace. I do not see the United States stopping their military drills, withdrawing their military from the Korean Peninsula, stopping the mocking attacks and exercises, which are really a bigger posture towards Russia and China, because there's no backing down of this bigger economic war that's happening between these world powers, and there's no reason they wouldn't use North Korea as the buffer zone. So I definitely don't see this going favorable for North Korea or the United States. I don't see the United States moving in their military way. Therefore, North Korea will not denuclearize. They're kind of bargaining right now because, from what I heard, they have the nuclear weapon and they're now at a better position at the negotiating table to negotiate some kind of bigger deal. That's my understanding of it.
Well, again, Luke, maybe I'm just too much of an optimist. And I've been wrong before, but I like to think that I'm pretty skeptical also, and I'm willing to look at things very objectively. But I think that, again, we're in the steps of the right direction. Listen, I'm not a huge fan of Mike Pompeo, but finding out that we sent him there over Easter Sunday and he met with officials and this may be part of the outcome, well, that's a positive thing. It's better than sending, a group of mercenaries, the old Blackwater XE services to go in for regime change and start popping off. So, again, we'll see where this goes. I don't trust John Bolton as much as I could shave his mustache. Let's be honest. He's not a very trustworthy individual. He is a bloodthirsty neocon. But
that's a lot of shaving.
That is up. You know what? I'll take that out with 4 strokes. Give me a Mach 3. I'll hold him right down. I'll hold him right down and shave that thing off. But in all seriousness, Luke, I think that these were very, very positive things. And I was in shock when you sent, I believe it was you. You sent me, hey, breaking news, and I'm watching this thing and I'm looking at it. I'm like, get out of here. I was waiting for a Trump press conference, but I had to wait a whole day for just a little small Trump tweet. So it seems like they're still in negotiations, like you said. They're coming from a stronger point than before, but we'll see where this goes. And again, overall, I think this is a positive move.
Yes, it's positive that there is actual communication between these two. It would be a big PR win for Donald Trump if he was able to negotiate peace with North Korea. But with my understanding and studies of that geopolitical region, it would be too much of a chessboard move away for the United States to make. And I don't see them making that. I don't see them sacrificing that for peace, because if you look at the kind of larger context of the U.S. military, especially after World War II, I never really seen that happen before, and it would be something obviously astonishing if it actually did happen. I'm more pessimistic, especially with Bolton in there, especially with his rhetoric that, of course, directly is out there to trigger Kim Jong Un with the statements he made before, saying that he would never give up the weapons, because their main it's their main kind of trump card, to say it lightly, that they have here. So it'll be interesting. You may be right, I may be wrong. We'll see in the near future. We'll see what's going to happen during these talks. It's going to be very fascinating seeing the two of them definitely together. But I'm looking forward to it, and I'm happy at least that there's more dialogue, that there's more conversations happening. Do I see it going somewhere? To be honest with you, no, definitely not with the bigger geopolitical picture out there. Let's move on to the next story, because we also found out this week that the Democrats are actually suing WikiLeaks and Julian Assange for revealing how the DNC rigged the Democratic primaries. And of course, WikiLeaks and Julian Assange are now countersuing. They're raising funds, and now there's going to be a big lawsuit between WikiLeaks and the DNC, which will be extremely interesting to find out what will come out through the discovery of this lawsuit that's happening right now. But it's also very interesting to see these very bold actions taken on behalf of the DNC, and it must be noted that we're still almost a month in to where Julian Assange, the founder of WikiLeaks, has been without visitors, without a phone, and without internet ever since the embassy in London cut him off, the Ecuadorian embassy. And this is a story that is definitely worth mentioning and talking about. What do you think about the DNC suing WikiLeaks, Jason?
Well, kind of insane. We did something illegal. We got caught. You're an organization for global whistleblowers that has nothing to do with the United States whatsoever. Let's sue you and Russia because Trump won. I mean, if you wonder, listen, I hate it when people start using the term libtard or anything, like that. But what do you expect when we're never letting 2016 go. We're literally in imagination land. Our Russian investigation has fallen apart. It's a fishing expedition with Michael Cohen's lawyer at this point. This litigation, Luke, could go on for 10 years. We could be on 2 separate presidents before this goes anywhere. And the brazenness, the ridiculousness, and this is the new thing, I guarantee, on CNN, CNBC, MSNBC for the next 3 months. This is going to be the big story. And you know what? It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's used to draw resources and funding away from WikiLeaks so they can't take the establishment on further. So they are further crippled from giving you leaks and giving you real information because you know what? They didn't do anything wrong. You guys did something wrong.
Yeah, I definitely haven't seen it on the Crap News Network, which I'm paying attention to, as you could see through the live broadcast. But you made a very good point that they're trying to neutralize WikiLeaks, and they definitely did that by entirely cutting off Julian Assange. And now, when he's cut off and can't even communicate, at the same time, they're going after and suing them and putting them in legal battles, which, you're right, will probably last for 10 years. Glenn Greenwald actually made a very interesting point. He's going on about how the mainstream media is talking about Trump attacking freedom of the press because he tweeted juvenile insults at TV stars and other journalists. But Glenn Greenwald, I think, put it very correctly. Obama and Trump DOJ persecuting sources under the Espionage Act, the DNC suing WikiLeaks for publishing docs, that is really an attack on press freedom, which of course is not getting any mention with that context anywhere in the mainstream media. With the mainstream media, they just keep getting more and more egg on their face, especially NBC this week, because they went live on their broadcasts promoting Comcast and Comcast's Cares Day for an entire program just littered on all of the MSNBC and NBC programs, talking about how their corporate owner, because Comcast actually owns that media conglomerate, talking about how great of a humanitarian corporation they are. Obviously not telling their viewership that they are actually owned by that corporation, but again, just inhaling and just getting more of this asinine hypocrisy, fart crap all over their auras and frequencies with their utter doo-doo that they spew on national television. And it's only getting more ridiculous with how just much fake they are. There's even this Twitter account, Christian Tribert. I'm going to actually put his Twitter account into the comment section. One thing he did this week that was very interesting, he went over all of the U.S. mainstream media's videos where they were showing the supposed attacks that the U.S. government committed on the Syrian government and the Syrian military and these chemical weapons facilities. And he just documented how all these videos were old videos from other conflicts and not the actual videos that the mainstream media was playing, portraying to you that this was Donald Trump bombing Syria right now. So the level of fakeness is just absolutely insane, and that's why they're losing credibility. That's why we're seeing such an attack by the mainstream media, by CNN, by all these other horrible corporations going after mom and pop media organizations like Jimmy Dore, like all these other independent news journalists who are doing their job better because they are not as fake, they are not as corporate controlled, they are not as hollow and filled with crap like they are. So obviously we're seeing a huge battlefield unfold, especially in the media landscape. And in my mind, even though they keep claiming all these victories, even though they keep suppressing all of us, in my mind, I think they're still losing very, very heavily.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Listen, they're losing the information war. There's no doubt about that. And this is just one of the small examples of how they've tried to keep us in this box. And I'm so glad that he's put these side-by-side comparisons. Unlike them, Luke, you know that I have access to live Syrian television. So as soon as the missiles started flying, I did something novel. I went to the Syrian television stations to see how they were covering it. And the video didn't get as much play as maybe some of the other ones we have over on the WeAreChange.org Facebook page. But go check it out. You can watch as a man is being interviewed and he points into the sky at a missile being fired as it goes off. You would think that if Jason Bermas has access to this, little old me, CNN, CNBC, MSNBC, they would also have access to these things and they wouldn't have to go into their archives to propagandize us. And really, Luke, honestly, this is nothing compared to what we're going to see in 20 years with AI. I'm sure you've seen those videos of somebody driving down the street and then in real time, AI creating that same street with snow or rain or other weather conditions. Well, in the future, they're just going to be able to, broadcast live that the Dome of the Rock has been nuked. And everybody's going to believe it, and it's going to look convincing, and it's going to put this media laziness, bias, and lies to shame, my friend.
Well, it's impossible to suppress the truth. It's impossible to try to stop a message, which actually goes along very well with the next story. I don't know if you want to introduce it, Jason. But most importantly, I think people need to understand here, they didn't want to show those live military strikes, because if they showed U.S. missiles getting shot down, that would directly contradict with the Pentagon propaganda with every missile hitting its designated target, like we saw from the U.S. military, which of course works hand in hand with the mainstream media to just kind of spew their crap out there. But I definitely, seeing the attacks escalate on us and this YouTube channel to a very severe level, definitely points to a time where we are winning, without a doubt. There's going to be a lot of hurt. We're hurting specifically because of the crap that we're dealing with YouTube, which again I'm going to address and make a full video about. I'm going to try to do it tomorrow after my flight back to New York City. But again, the whole media landscape, it's again chaotic, just like the rest of the world. But segueing into the next story, without trying the difficulties of trying to suppress something, Jason?
Yeah, it seems that for 7 days, Russia has been trying to ban Telegram, which is a huge app over in that area of the world. But they've also blocked 18 million IP addresses. And, there are some people in the comment sections every once in a while that, obviously we're Russian agents, Luke, and we've got Putin on our mind all the time. But the bottom line is, when something like this happens, we're not happy about it. We don't think that Putin is above the law and he doesn't do bad things. And the thing is that when you do this sort of thing, you know what happens? Technology moves at such a rate that more people will be involved with VPNs, virtual private networks. They'll be going to the dark web. They will build their own networks to share information. It's already happening. So this type of suppression, if you will, Luke, although extremely wrong and extremely misguided, is almost futile at this point.
Yeah, it's impossible to stop an idea whose time has come, as we're seeing how difficult it is, especially in this new kind of changing media landscape and online landscape. Obviously, there's still a lot of things to worry about, especially with even just Amazon recently. I believe they put in, a request for a patent that would actually break encryption with cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin in order to give the U.S. government and other agencies information about where money has directly gone to. But even with stuff like that happening on the landscape, again, I think we're on the verge of a major shift here, and I think it could either go really, really bad or really, really good. But right now, it's virtually impossible for the kind of authoritarians to stop a message. And I think we need to utilize that and keep speaking openly and freely and having these conversations and not being afraid to have these conversations, because very soon they could be just illegal thought crimes. And that definitely looks like the direction that these kind of central controllers, that these plutocrats are kind of trying to push society towards, to where we're going to tell you what's acceptable to talk about. We're going to tell you what you can and cannot discuss. You have an idea that we don't like, we'll totally blacklist you. And again, if you really want to look at any state of society or any state of a human being, it's really their tolerance to be able to hear ideas that are contradictory and still keep their emotions balanced. That's how you see a stable, smart, rational human being. We haven't seen that from a lot of people. We've seen a lot of triggering, a lot of angering, a lot of stupid, childish behavior being promoted, of course, by these technocrats and people who do promote all this divisiveness that make people fight each other and divide and conquer human society, either on the left or the right. People need to understand here, the politicians, the corporations, the plutocrats, the banksters, they're still making a fortune here. They're still making a lot of money and getting their way here. And until we really realize all those factors, then we can actually shift out of this bigger kind of paradigm that we're in right now. And it ultimately begins with having a conversation, choosing to engage and hear with ideas that you may not like or haven't heard before, and being able to rationally discuss them and communicate them with each other, which I hope we aspire to be that kind of vehicle. And I think it's one of the reasons channels like ours and so many other independent media outlets have been getting very critically hit, especially with YouTube and Google.
No, I'm with you, Luke. And again, as these platforms try to constrict even further on what you can and cannot say, they're just going to lose people. You know, that's why Steemit exists. That's why DTube exists. We use those platforms. Vimeo's out there, and they can do their best to try to suppress this information. But the more and more Google restricts searches, guess what? People will go to things like DuckDuckGo. All right, that's the bottom line. Like, we will find another way to get our message across. And it sucks that, you know, forget about conservative platforms. How about not being on the propaganda end of things? You know, CNN, they're always going to be monetized. NBC, they're always going to be monetized. And they literally call for the bombing of brown people half a world away that have done nothing to me.
Well, just any people who stand in their way in their agenda of the bigger kind of military-industrial complex. It's not just brown people, but it's a bigger paradigm. It's a bigger picture here, because anyone who stands in their way gets hits directly. These mofo's are able to show people and their anchors eating human brains on live television. They're able to show graphic footage from Syria. But YouTube still promotes them. YouTube still, monetizes them, recommends them to everyone. Meanwhile, they do a complete and utter opposite to the people doing what they're not doing, what they should be doing as the kind of fourth branch of government. So let's continue on with this Dash giveaway. We got another super chat first. Also by Mike Mendoza. Thank you so much, Mike. And he says, thank you so much, Luke and Jason. People like yourselves really aspire critical thought and have objective dialogue. Yeah, it's important. Me and Jason disagree on a lot of things, just like you saw within this broadcast. And it's important to be able to have that discussion. I don't hate Jason. I'm not going to hit Jason. I'm not going to throw a brick at Jason because we disagree. We're still able to work together even though we have a lot of different ideas, and I think that's what we need. We need that kind of conversation. That's why I like doing this show with Jason, so we could actually expand and learn and admit sometimes when we're wrong, which is very, very unlikely for a lot of the bigger media outlets to do. But when they do, it's actually in the fine print, a very small print for a very specific reason, not broadcasted like we do. Anyway, moving forward, even though we're dealing with all this bull crap and suppression and demonetization and censorship, soft censorship by YouTube, there's other alternatives, and cryptocurrencies have been one of them. Cryptocurrencies have been a complete Wild West platform for a lot of people to engage in. A lot of prices going up dramatically, a lot of prices going down dramatically, but it has been filled with a very diverse community, and also a part of that community is also very giving. A few weeks ago, we put in a proposal to master noders of Dash on their Dash forum. People liked the idea. We got 50 Dash. And because we got 50 Dash to empower independent media, we're giving some of that Dash away to you, the audience. And for you to get the Dash, you have to open up a wallet. I'm going to put in the link into the comment section right now of this YouTube video. It's pretty much dash.org where you could download a wallet, because when you download a wallet, you participate in the cryptocurrencies. You help the platform be hosted. You help the transactions go through, and you are a part of a kind of a community that is based on instant private payment methods that is outside of the kind of big banking systems that many people are trying to push out there. Whether Dash or cryptocurrencies are going to go to the moon or go to zero, no one really knows. It could be worth zero tomorrow, But to me, seeing some of the great work that has been done, especially with Dash, especially with their humanitarian efforts, especially with their multimedia efforts, especially with some of the really good things that they were able to do, it made me naturally go to them, because if I'm ever going to be sponsored by anyone, it's not going to be some really fear-mongering, horrible company. It's going to be something that I believe in, and it's something that I do believe in. Jason was just learning about this. The first time we did this, we went with Jason and taught him how to do a Dash wallet. Right now, we have another proposal in. If we get approved, we're going to be doing more things, more giveaways, more projects, more contests. We're finally, hopefully, will be able to hire people to expand this operation where it's not just me and Jason doing the majority of the heavy lifting here. So definitely sign up for Dash. Definitely let the Dash community know that we're out there, that we're doing our best to kind of cross-promote each other, because the ideas do kind of intersect with each other. That's what I personally believe in. What do you think, Jason?
No, absolutely. And guys, we have given this away. It's going to go to the first, or up to the first 100 people that go over to Twitter. You put that in the section.
Well,
right
I just
there, right?
tweeted it. I tweeted it right now on twitter.com/Luke WeAreChange. So that is my Twitter account. If you do want the Dash, we're going to give out a total of $500. If 5 people respond with their Dash wallets, all of them get 100. If one of them responds, they get the whole 500. If 100 people respond, which I think we're going to cut it off at that limit, everyone's going to get $5. And the way to do that is to go to twitter.com/Luke WeAreChange. I'll just put the link into the comment section. I'm going to do that again right now. In the YouTube video, you go on Twitter, and then you make sure you follow us and you respond to that tweet with, of course, your Dash address. And then we're going to go, after this broadcast, go through every single address and then allocate $500 worth of Dash to everyone who participated, cutting off people at, of course, 100. So the first 100, if there's 100. If there's less than 100, if there's 50, they'll be $10 each. Less than that, you get it. You get what I'm saying here. Right, Jason?
Yeah, and wait, it's on your Twitter?
Yeah.
All right,
Well,
so you're going to have to send me the names and the wall and the things. I don't have access to your Twitter.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. Just let you know. So, folks,
more work here in Germany at, like, what time is it?
I don't.
Oh, it's 1:41 in the morning. I've been up since 6 o'clock in the morning in Romania. Now it's 2 o'clock in the morning here in Germany. And tomorrow I have a long flight to New York. Wait, I think you could actually, no, you could actually, man, we just did this randomly. I'm just logged into my Twitter account. I'm not logged into the WeAreChange one. We could do the WeAreChange one next week. But you could also click on that tweet. Hold on, Jason. And then you could get the addresses and replies down below.
I so should, as long as WeAreChange or at WeAreChange New York City is in the tweet, the at.
No, I could just send you the URL, and then you could see the addresses. The addresses are coming in right now. Yeah, I'm seeing the addresses right now.
Yeah, but I might not see the ats at you unless there's ats in there at the address I have. We'll talk about it after the show, because there are a couple other things, Luke, I've seen in the chats I want to discuss. For instance, I'm seeing a little bit about this frazzled drip or frazzled rip or HRC video, which is in reference to the supposed dark web video of Huma Abedin and Hillary Clinton at Comet Ping Pong filleting a young child's face after they've had their way with her. And I just want to let people know there is zero evidence that this is a thing, and it reeks of disinformation. And when I see all these people tweeting about it, it really gets away from some real breaking evidence of the Nexium cult over in Clifton Park, only about 80 minutes from me, with Kevin Rainier being arrested. Now he's allegedly been with a 12-year-old girl. He's on sex trafficking charges. It's reached all the way to Hollywood. Allison Mack gets arrested this week. She tweets out about her friend Marina Abramovich, who we all know ended up in those Podesta emails quite heavily. Do you
know Abramovich's family is actually in Serbia, and does a lot of research work with Tesla. And they describe the kind of close family disassociated with the Lady Gaga, Hillary Clinton, Ambrovimich, and they call it this is what I just learned in Serbia. Just a little tidbit here, that the Ambrovimich family is broken apart through the light and the dark. And of course, Marina practices the occult, and supposedly there's another side of the family in Serbia that practices the light and studies Nikola Tesla and some of his writings and things too. Sorry, just random implement since I was just in Serbia.
And what he's talking about is actually the right hand and the left hand path of magic or the occult. And it's something that, these occultists do believe in. And unfortunately, Luke, it seems that a lot of these people are very much in power and into some very dark things. So, we should be following leads with this Nexium cult, with the Bronfman billionaire sisters being involved, with Rainier being arrested, with Hollywood purging people like Dan Schneider in the last couple of weeks. That's what we need to focus on if we ever want this information to reach the mainstream and be taken seriously, not hoax videos of literally like House of 1,000 Corpses, or what's Rob Zombie's other one? You know what I mean? It's where the guy actually wears the person's face and then she gets run over by a truck. I'm just saying, horror movie nonsense. Unless there's hardcore evidence, we have to remember, Luke, that initial article of the NYPD looking at Wiener's laptop. Although I do believe those quotes to be real, we don't know who gave those quotes. That's an anonymous source. We never found out inside the New York Police Department who got that laptop and what information was actually on there.
Yeah, that's a very important question to ask and to stay on, which of course a lot of people have strayed away from because of a lot of the theories that are out there. And we kind of saw a very similar thing after 9/11. There was a big group of family members of rescue workers demanding answers, wanting help, wanting support, being very critical of government. And then a whole bunch of people that were just totally crazy and nuts were either sent in or just naturally just went there and started spouting these crazy beliefs and theories of UFOs and aliens and like 3D projections and things that didn't have anything to do or any realm of reality with evidence or any basis that could actually be proven. And then automatically, if you even talked about 9/11 in a critical way, people pointed to you, oh, you're one of those crazies. You're one of those crazy conspiracy theorists that believes in all this other crazy stuff. And we're like, no, we're asking legitimate questions here. But that's how you destroy a movement, and that's how the kind of 9/11 truth movement with family members and rescue workers was ultimately destroyed. And I think very similar stuff is happening. A lot of disinformation is coming out to muddy the water so people never find out what's really going on. But I think we just have to stay, again, consistent with just what we could prove, with just asking pointed questions and not jumping to speculations and theories out there, which again destroys the whole pursuit of truth and gives an excuse for the crap news network to delegitimize you in front of everyone else. So that's why it's important to call this out and to be very, very, very on top of all this and to actually talk about this in a very serious manner without jumping to conclusions or the theoretical and acting like that is 100% truth.
Absolutely, Luke. And, I've always been a very evidence-based guy, and that's where we need to be on subjects like this. Unfortunately, and again, there's so many people that want to believe in fantasies. They want to go to the Q codes. Q's going to tell us everything. We got to trust the plan. And it's nonsense. It's fantasy world. It's not backed up by evidence. If you're going to 4chan, the troll capital of the internet, for your information, but not even for your information, from a riddle, from a mysterious man in D.C., it's beyond imagination that this kind of thing has taken off. when there's so much real information out there, there's so much mainstream media. I mean, people see that the comments are ragging on you for watching CNN. Again, you got to know the enemy. And I always tell people, how are you supposed to have discernment if you're not watching CNN, Fox News, CNBC, NBC, MSNBC, PBS, NPR, Vice? You've got to continue. The list goes on. And kind of see not only what you are seeing, but what you're not seeing. And as we started the show, talking about things like AFRICOM, you know what? You're not seeing anything about AFRICOM on any of those.
Or Somalia, or Yemen, or a lot of the bigger geopolitical pictures, or even the other side of the story, which I think is a very important context for the American people to see and understand, especially since it's our participation in this system that keeps it going. And the only thing that stops it going is us finding out what is really happening. And that's why independent media has been such a threat to the establishment, and that's why they've been such a target on a lot of us, because we totally expose all of it. We totally dethrone and take away the power from the people who abuse it. And rightfully so, it should be taken away. And the very powerful, the very few, are making sure that it never does. YouTube, Google, mainstream media, all the big industrial complexes out there, they all have a bigger agenda. They all serve themselves, and they act, and they only exist because people think that they don't. But in reality, they do. Once you expose that, their power, their viewership, their money, their influence all goes away. So that's why it's important to keep talking no matter what. That just like we started this broadcast talking about Pat Tillman. I haven't seen anyone talking about Pat Tillman, but he's a true person that needs to be remembered, that needs to be talked about, because only our continuation of talking about these ideas of this history of what really happened makes it important, makes it prevalent, makes it a reality. So again, we have a voice. It's time to use it. It's time to not be afraid. We're at a very critical juncture in human civilization and in human society where things could go either really, really good or really, really bad. I'm doing everything in my power, putting everything on the line to make sure it goes really good, because I know that this is the key moment here. This is the key time here. It is fourth quarter. We're down by 10 points. The few minutes left on the shot clock. What are you going to do? Hell, I'm not giving up. You could pull off a miracle. It's possible. And that kind of small kind of belief keeps me going and keeps me running. And I wouldn't be here if I didn't believe it. Right?
Absolutely, Luke. Absolutely. And you know what? The idea that everything is, going to become better overnight or going to be better to begin with, it's going to be a constant struggle. Good and evil do exist. They struggle against one another. And over time, through the progression of positivity and ideas that empower humanity, I do believe that we can make a positive influence in this world.
You're finally becoming a hippie like me, Jason. I'm surprised.
No, it's going to take hard work and not wearing sandals. You're going to have to put some boots on, Luke. You're going to have to lace those boots on
all the time. I'm always ready to go. Where's my boots? I always got my... Yeah. I'm going to get new boots. These are my boots.
Yep. Are you in Crocs
I wear
right
boots. I'm wearing slippers.
Exactly.
I got wool socks. If you're a traveler, get wool socks. Get wool clothes. It's been a life changer. It's a whole separate topic. We got a super chat by Zoran, who is saying, "Have a safe trip home." Well, thank you so much, Zoran. I actually had a whole allergic crazy reaction from shellfish that was in this sandwich today. I thought I was going to die in this airplane. I was losing breath. I had to go puke. I had a whole crazy journey today. 2 airplanes. But that's a whole nother story. You don't want to hear me ranting about all the private stuff that's happening out there. But very interestingly also today, I also saw Get Me Roger Stone, the documentary about Roger Stone on Netflix, and it blew my mind away and also creeped me out a little bit. Jason, you haven't seen it yet, did you?
No, I haven't watched it, but you hit me up with it, and I saw Roger kind of bragging that they had made this documentary about him, the dirty trickster, if you will. And I'm going to check it out. Again, Roger
he's proud of it. He's proud of it. The whole thesis of this thing is he's behind all of these really sinister, dirty, backstabbing, evil things, and he wants to be known for more of those things. So it's a mind trip watching it. It's a mind trip watching it because, again, his famous line is, "I'd rather be infamous than not, famous at all, or something like that. That's his kind of direct quote. But Roger Stone, who obviously is working close with other independent media organizations out there, it was just incredible to see the kind of direct correlation of a lot of his ideas being automatically spewed on by Donald Trump, and Donald Trump perpetrating those kind of ideas and those kind of bigger issues even before he became president. And especially now it's kind of escalated a little bit, but there does seem to be a rift between them. But even things like, what was it, the Elliot Spitzer thing, the Obama birth certificate thing, we saw Roger Stone issue those statements on national television before Donald Trump kind of even made them bigger public issues in the world on media.
I got a public issue for you that Roger Stone has talked about. If he's really genuine, next week, Luke, on this very program, we're going to be talking about who actually killed Kennedy, because all the documents are supposedly going to be released on the 26th.
Supposedly.
That's right. We're going to get the DeBruy Memorandum, that first initial 800-page document by the FBI that no one seems to know about. That's going to get released, and we're finally going to have justice in the coup d'etat over the presidency. It's finally happening, thanks to Roger Stone. Thank you, Roger.
Okay, yeah. I remember seeing a whole bunch of disinformation from Roger Stone. I remember him and another person that he works on the broadcast with talking about how Julian Assange sold out because no. There's supposedly disinformation coming out about Julian Assange releasing Hillary Clinton's email. And Roger Stone said it would come out early, and then this supposed independent media personality said, he's not releasing it, he's a total shill. He even went on about his personal junk size and got really personal there. But there's been a lot of instances. He's definitely an interesting guy because the whole documentary leaves you to this point, did he really do all these kind of sinister, evil things, or is he only taking credit for it because he wants to be kind of known? But one of the things that is very clear is that he was one of the people behind starting the super PACs that obviously we're seeing infiltrate politics with, of course, big money buying out politicians. He was one of the few people that made that a very popular kind of loophole for big money to get into politics without any kind of authority. So it's just fascinating, and it kind of makes me question a lot of the narratives that we've been hearing about Trump and Roger Stone. Definitely recommend watching it. If you don't have Netflix, bootlegging it, whatever you want. But definitely, let's watch it, Jason, and talk about it next week. I think it'll be interesting to do a movie review or a book review once a week on this Sunday broadcast as well. Again, we're going on. We got another super chat by AN, and he says, "Do not stop, Luke. Do not forget about illegal regime changes by deep state U.S. government." Well, if you've been watching this show, you could see I don't think we forgot about anything. We're here reporting to you both sides of the story so people understand the kind of propaganda and bullcrap that is being thrown to you every single day by these crap news networks, as we're seeing right in front of me as I'm watching them. They're talking about a London marathon now. Not really news, but I don't care. Okay, it's some guy running. Some guy ran down the street really fast here. We got some excellent sports ball coverage by the Crap News Network.
You know what, though? We didn't bring up this story, but we should report it. I did it on the backup channel. We didn't talk about the backup channel today. That is youtube.com/Luke WeAreChange. But actually, a Boston Globe reporter was put on leave because he was fabricating stories about the Boston Marathon bombing. Shocking.
Fabricating them, like just totally making them up.
Yeah, just making they show actually in the local news thing a interview with him on C-SPAN. He was on C-SPAN talking about it, that he was over 1.5 miles, I believe, away from the event as it took place. And then they went to his writings, and he was right there in the thick of it. Babies crying, women running, the whole nine. And it just shows you that journalists will go to no uncertain lengths to fabricate stories, to sensationalize them, and get their audience to believe the narrative that they construct, Luke.
And this is not the first time that this happened. There's been a number of instances of journalists just completely making up sources, completely making up stories, either just because of laziness or incompetence. One of the great quotes from Get Me Roger Stone that I watched was by, I believe it was one of his friends, who said, the mainstream media are either evil or they're just lazy. And once you figure that out, you could easily control the narrative. So that was one of the statements that was supposedly issued by Roger Stone. I agree with him on that, but some of the things that he was able to get away with, allegedly, according to him, they are not good things at all. They're very, very, very bad things that Roger Stone is taking credit for, that I would never want to take credit for. And I definitely disagree with that statement. I think this is why a lot of human society right now is in decay, is because of this belief that you'd rather be infamous than not famous. That is kind of a very asinine way just to get attention. It's kind of like the illegitimate, immature way to get attention. And I think it's definitely a degressed society. And I think we need to be better, especially with our clicks, especially with our likes, especially with what we choose to focus our attention on, especially in the media age, and not make those things as prevalent as they are. And they kind of feed themselves as well. Oh, that's just my ramblings on it.
No, I'm with you, Luke. Like I said, can't really disagree with that. The media is lazy. They are liars, and they can be manipulated, and we do see that time and time again as they are trying to be the first ones to a story. I mean, even if you go back as far as just the YouTube shooter that they thought they were going to get this great narrative on. At first, they're talking about scorned lovers and, this and that. But as soon as it was something that the media didn't want to promote, as soon as it was a vegan Iranian with a handgun that she had bought legally, that story faded from the news pretty quickly. So are they lazy? You bet. Are they manipulative? You bet. Are they honest? In no way, shape, or form are they honest.
Yeah. Well, luckily no one was killed in that YouTube attack except for the perp. Which I think is also another reason why people made that argument that it kind of faded away. But also, there's so many other examples where it just doesn't fit their narrative. It doesn't fit the contrived social propaganda that they try to push on you, that they just totally ignore. And again, there's a lot of importance when it comes to editorializing news, when it comes to deciding what is heard and what is said and what is not said, and what pictures you're going to see and what conflicts you're going to learn about. That ultimately is the biggest factor that makes people not realize how much full of crap they are and how much of a propaganda outlet they are, because they think they're doing the right thing, but they need to realize there obviously is a clear bias. No matter who you're talking to, no one's perfect. We're not perfect. I have a very clear bias against authorities, against governments, against anyone trying to aggress against someone, hurt them, or tell them what to do, or force them to do something. When someone's doing something like that, I automatically have a huge bias. And a lot of that has to do with my upbringing. A lot of that has to do with me and my family being Polish, dealing with fascism and communism, hearing stories from my grandparents, how they survived the atrocities of both horrible left ideologies and horrible right-wing ideologies that screw over the people almost in identical ways. And people need to realize the answer is not within that left, it's not within that right, it's within all of us saying, hey, let's stop feeding the dumbasses here. Let's actually talk some common sense here and be able to have a conversation and move forward with this without being total illegitimate, immature kids who just slap each other upside the head. It's that simple. It's that simple, but yet it's so complicated at the same time because of the emotional-based propaganda, manipulative, psychological warfare that's conducted on the American people, which is done by these buttholes, which, of course, I put on just to see what they're talking about because I need to know what crap they're pushing on you next.
Well, with that, Luke, I think that might be it for the show.
Yeah, I'm exhausted.
We are giving away $500 in Dash to the first 100 prospective tweeters. Go and check out Luke's Twitter for that tweet. You're going to retweet it. You're going to send us your Dash wallet. We'll be checking that in about 4 hours. Everybody that gets it in, I will be sending Dash to probably sometime tomorrow afternoon. Remember, they are a sponsor of us and other great independent media organizations. If you want to make that to continue to happen, please let them know that you got a Dash wallet because of WeAreChange.org. Please hit that like, share, subscribe button. It's only by you guys pushing this digital cryptocurrency that we are going to be able to continue and grow. And we want to thank the Dash community so much for what they've done for us so far. But we're hoping this is just the beginning of a very beautiful relationship, Luke.
We can only hope, and we'll see how our proposal does this time. We're asking for more Dash because we have more ideas. We need more hands on deck. Obviously, the more we get, the more we're going to give back 100% to the community, not only of Dash, but to the world, and we're going to do our best. I mean, the time is now. It's no better than right now to get active and to get involved. So yeah, it is 2:04 o'clock in the morning here in Frankfurt, Germany. I've been up since 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm tired. I went through a major allergy attack. I thought I was going to die. I was puking everywhere today. It's a rough day. But it's all better because I have an outlet. I have a way to express myself, and it's only possible because of you. That's why I love you guys. Thank you again so much for watching. Stay tuned for more. And thanks, Jason, for being on this live broadcast with me and tolerating me and dealing with me and my hippy-dippy craziness that you have to go through. We're working with me.
All right. Thank you, guys. We'll see you next week.